Hello, my name is Jessie Demmer, and I'm the Digitization Project Coordinator at the Kislak Center and the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies at the Penn Libraries. I'd like to give a brief introduction to OPEN, primary digital resources available to everyone, a project from the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies at the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. After this introduction to OPEN, I'll focus on one particular method of obtaining images and metadata from OPEN in bulk. This method is a computer program called wget, and we'll end with a short demonstration on how to use wget. So our objectives for this workshop or presentation are threefold. First off, I want you to gain an understanding of what the OPEN website is and why we created it. Secondly, I want you to have a good understanding of the structure of OPEN and how to navigate through it. And lastly, I want to show you how to download images and metadata from OPEN to your computer using wget and have you try that out. So this is the OPEN homepage. On May 1st, 2015, Penn Libraries and the Schoenberg Institute launched OPEN, a website that makes digitized cultural heritage material, in particular images and metadata, with special collections material freely available and accessible to the public. We created OPEN as a way to open up our resources, pun intended, to the world at large. You can come here and find manuscript images and accompanying metadata, download it to your computer, and use it as you see fit. OPEN came out of the work that Will Noel and Doug Emery had previously done at the Walters Art Museum with the digital Walters. When they both moved to the Penn Libraries, OPEN was soon created by a team of people at the Schoenberg Institute. There is a philosophy or set of guidelines behind OPEN that is based on 4 core values. The first is that the images and metadata should be high quality. There are 3 types of images for each item on OPEN. The archival and publication quality images are TIFF files that are at least 400 ppi. The web JPEGs are 1800 pixels on the longest side, and the thumbnail JPEGs are 190 pixels on the longest side. The metadata files are in TEI XML format and consist of extensive descriptive and structural metadata. Transformed from MARC records are the work of original catalogers. The reason for insisting on high quality images and metadata are to support the work of OPEN users. For instance, the TIFF images may be required if you're looking for publication quality images. The thumbnail and web JPEG images we provide work well for easy reuse in web applications, and robust metadata in a standardized accepted format such as TEI enhances interoperability in digital humanities projects. The second guideline is that any item on OPEN must be a free cultural work as defined by freedomdefined.org. So the user has the freedom to use the work and enjoy the benefits of using it, the freedom to study the work and apply knowledge acquired from it, the freedom to make and redistribute copies in whole or in part of the information or expression, and the freedom to make changes and improvements, and to distribute derivative works. Creative Commons licenses endorse this definition of free cultural works, and these are the licenses we use on OPEN. On each manuscript items page, you'll find the Creative Commons licenses for both the images and the metadata. And I'll show you this in a few minutes when we navigate through the OPEN website. The third guideline is that the data must be easy to access quickly and efficiently using a variety of protocols, such as Anonymous FTP and programs like Anonymous rsync and wget that use the command line utility. In other words, you can download the data with as few barriers as possible. We'll be diving into one method in particular, and that's wget. And the fourth guideline is that OPEN is for humans and computers. OPEN must be easy to browse for humans, but structured in a predictable way for computers. This allows you to find the data you want, but use the computer programs to do the work of downloading files to your computer. There are 2 different ways to access the images and metadata on OPEN. we'll call one the human readable way, using browsable HTML pages, and we'll call the other way of accessing the data the computer accessible way, which is a data folder structured in a predictable way, listing images and metadata files. Let's take a look at the website to get a better idea of what this looks like. So this is, and a couple of housekeeping things before we talk about navigating open. This is the home page, and then there's a README file which gives you more information about open, what it is, how we'd like you to cite stuff on open, what you can expect to find here. And then we also have, if you go back to the home page, we have a technical README file. This has more in-depth information about how the data is structured on open. It also has more in-depth information about the TEI files and how they're structured. And it also has a section on downloading files with wget, as well as other methods. So you may want to take a look at this as well. So let's go to the repositories page. This is a list of all the different repositories that we have available on open. And if you click on any of them, for instance, the American Philosophical Society, you'll find information about the American Philosophical Society, what the specs are for images that you can find from this repository, and also licensing information. And you'll find the documents that are available from this repository. And if you go to the browse page, this is the human readable HTML page I was mentioning. Here you have the manuscript's title, other metadata about the manuscript, the licensing information for this specific manuscript. And you have some decorations. If you click on those, it'll take you to the exact page. Cover. And here you see the images of this manuscript. Now, if you click on this, it'll take you to the TIFF images. TIFF image. It takes a while to download because the TIFF images are large, but it'll show up in the browser. Wait just a minute. And you can see, you can really go in. You also have access to the thumbnail JPEG and the web JPEG. So the TIFF image you would want access to if you wanted like a publication quality image. These images, the thumbnail and the web JPEG, are lower, are smaller, and would be better used in a web application. Now that's just one image, of course. If you click on this, you can see the other one. And if you wanted to download just one of these, you could right-click and download the file. And then if you go back here, you also have access to the TEI file. So you can see this is where all the metadata is stored. And we actually, if you go to the browse page, the HTML page here, all of this metadata is pulled from the TEI file and laid out in HTML so that it's easier for you to read. But you can also go to the data folder, and this is the computer browsable part. This is the data structured in a way that's predictable for computers and that you would send your computer to, for instance, if you wanted to get this, the images and metadata in bulk, which we'll go over in a little bit. If you click on the data folder, you'll see here all the TIFF files in one folder, in the master folder. And then if you click on the thumb folder, this is where all the JPEGs, thumb JPEGs for this particular manuscript are. And then if you click on this, this is all the web JPEGs are for this particular manuscript. And you also have access to the TEI file here. So you can get to that through the repository page, but another way of getting to the data folder is by clicking on the data folder on the home page. Now it's important to note that all the repositories actually have numbers associated with them. So if we go back to the repositories page, you'll see here a repository ID. So we were just looking at the American Philosophical Society, whose repository ID is 0043. So if we go back to open the homepage and go to the data folder and go to folder 0043, this is where we'll find the folders for the items that are from the American Philosophical Society. And if you click on these, they each have the same structure with the folders with the TIFFs, the folders with the thumbnail JPEGs, and the folders with the web JPEGs, as well as the TEI file. And you can see they all have the same structure. Okay. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. Oh, one more thing that I wanted to mention. Actually, two more things. If you go to the data folder, you can find a CSV of all the contents of each folder. So if I click on this, this lists all the different manuscripts in this repository. Some are larger than others. This is our largest one. This is the University of Pennsylvania. You can see it's quite large. And if you download this file, you can also open it with Excel, which some of you will be more familiar with than working with CSVs. You can open CSVs in Excel. And then we also have a curated collections page. And this is where we create curated collections that list items from multiple repositories for a specific reason. A lot of times it's a grant-funded project like Bibliotheca Philadelphiensis. This was a project that we recently finished within the last 6 months, where all the manuscripts, medieval and Renaissance manuscripts from the Philadelphia region were digitized and made available. And as you can see, these are all the different institutions that participated. And if you scroll down, you'll see that they're all listed with the items from that project listed underneath the repository. And if you go to this repository, also on the repositories page, you'll also find these listed under there. But there may be others as well that weren't part of the Bibliotheca Philadelphiensis project, for instance. And you also can find information about the project here, including standards and specifications for the project, licensing, sponsorship, etc. A project we're working on right now is Manuscripts of the Muslim World. It's similar to Bibliotheca Philadelphiensis in that we're digitizing manuscripts from the Philadelphia region, but they're Islamic manuscripts. And we're also digitizing and we're making available manuscripts from Columbia University. They're digitizing their manuscripts, but that's obviously not the Philadelphia region, but they're part of the project. Okay, and then if you go back to the data folder, you can also find CSVs for the curated collections here. So the contents of each curated collection. So for instance, here's the Bibliotheca Philadelphiensis CSV. And again, you can download these and open them in Excel. All right, so that's the basic navigation of the site. Go to the repositories pages to browse if you're a human, or the curated collections page. You can also browse that way. And you can, go to a manuscript, check it out, go back. But if you want to direct your computer to get these manuscripts in bulk, you're going to want to know about the data folder, our naming scheme for the repositories, the numbers, and the structure. That in each repository we have all the items listed, and then the items all have a data folder with the TIFFs, the thumbnail JPEGs, the web JPEGs, and the TEI file. All right, so let's go back to the PowerPoint then. Okay. All right, so with a little over 5 years under our belt, we have put a lot of material up on Open. In fact, we have over 9,000 manuscripts available and counting. There's the Lawrence J. Schoenberg collection of manuscripts, nearly 300 manuscripts and documents with an emphasis on the history of science and the transmission of knowledge across time and geography. That's a manuscript collection we have at the Kislak Center. We also have over 2,200 other medieval, Renaissance, and early modern manuscripts from Penn's Rare Book and Manuscript Library. We're continuing to add them until we're done. And we also have about 2,800 Indic manuscripts from Penn on Open, thanks to our NEH grant-funded project to digitize our collection. And we also have our small collection of Thai manuscripts up as well. In addition to the Penn manuscripts, we have over 450 medieval manuscripts and about 1,800 fragments and leaves from Philadelphia area institutions, thanks to the CLEAR-funded Bibliotheca Philadelphiensis project, which I just mentioned when we were navigating the site. Our most recent grant projects are Manuscripts of the Muslim World, which I mentioned, as well as digitizing Philadelphia's historic congregations, and for the Health of the New Nation, Philadelphia as a Center of American Medical Education, 1748 to 1868. There's even more to discover on Open, so I encourage you to browse and check out what we have on there and look at all the different repositories. So currently the data on Open is available to the public under one of 4 Creative Commons licenses. We have works that are in the public domain or free of known copyright, like medieval manuscripts. CC0 is for works that are under copyright, but the copyright holder gives them a public domain dedication. So for instance, cataloging metadata that an institution has waived copyright for. The institution would have copyright for the metadata, but in the interest of making it available to the public, they've given it a CC0 designation. That's an example of what a CC0 designation could look like. We have works under the CC BY license in which one must give appropriate credit to the copyright holder, provide a link to the license, and indicate if changes have been made to the data. And we also have items, not very many, but some under a CC BY SA license, which means CC BY share alike. It has all the same restrictions as CC BY, except with an added restriction that any contributions you make that changes the original material must be shared under the same license as the original material. So you would have to re-release the material if you change it under a CC BY SA license. It's important to note that we stop at this level of restriction on open. We do not have anything under a CC BY non-commercial license. That means that images on open can be reused for commercial use no matter what the license. In the case of CC BY SA or share alike, if the adaptation of the original material is sold, it must be sold under the CC BY share alike license so that the buyer has the option to continue to make adaptations. All of these licenses can be a little confusing at first, but you can check out this link here, and that'll give you more information. And each item on open does have the licenses listed. So if you have any confusion over what the license might mean, I encourage you to, first of all, go to the item that you're interested in, look at what the license is, and then look it up on creativecommons.org. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the data must be easy to access and download. There are a number of ways to do this quickly and easily, some of them requiring more technical savvy than others. So anonymous FTP is a standard network protocol that has been around since the beginning of the internet. This is an easy way to access data on open, and no password is needed because it's anonymous FTP. The software is free often and probably already on your computer. Some of you may remember anonymous FTP from the 90s. Down the Mall is a Firefox browser extension that you can download for free that allows you to download all the files from a web page. And allows you to specify the file types you want. It's not as sophisticated as some of the other methods, but it has the lowest technical barrier. It's definitely easy. You just have to be in the Firefox browser and make sure that you have the browser extension installed. Then there's wget, which is a command line utility available for Mac, Linux, or Windows. That's the one we're focusing on in this workshop. And the technical README on open has instructions on how to download and use wget. And we provide what we call recipes or series of wget commands in the technical README for how to give very specific instructions to your computer for bulk downloads. For example, how to download all the TEI XML files for a collection, or how to download just the web JPEGs from a manuscript. This is more sophisticated than other methods and takes some willingness to learn a new skill. Which is why I'm glad you're watching this today, because you'll be learning that skill. The last method I want to mention is anonymous rsync, or remote synchronization. It's the best tool to use if you want to aggregate all of the open data, as it maintains an updated copy on your machine of what is on open. Each time you run rsync, the utility will check to see if anything has been removed and remove it, or check to see if anything has been added and then add it to your copy. For most people, this method isn't that practical, but I do want you to know that it's available. All right, so this is just a teaser of what wget is like. This is the command line. I just typed a command in there, and you can see it's running, and all of the images are downloading to a folder on my computer. Now, I had done this previously. This is just a video, but I wanted to demonstrate how quickly you can download all of, for instance, the web JPEGs of a manuscript. I think this takes about 40 seconds. And there you have it. And I just, there's one of the very nice images from LJS 101. If you missed it, there's the command line, and there's the command. Press enter, and then it just starts running. Okay. To end the introduction into open, I wanted to talk about why we created open. Mainly to provide access to open data. A big reason to use open data is that it's free access to manuscripts that you might want to work with, and on open, downloading is easy. You don't have to contact the reprographics department at the Kislak Center to get what you want. And the Creative Commons licenses tell you exactly what you can and cannot do with the data. It's convenient too. You can access the data from anywhere as long as you have a computer. It also has the added benefit of reducing the number of times a manuscript might be handled. The metadata is an important component of open data as well because it provides context to the images. There's some very basic information embedded within the image files, but the TEI descriptions include both descriptive metadata about the whole work and structural metadata that links images to page level metadata, like table of contents information and decoration information. As long as you download the TEI along with the images, you will have access to this metadata. But the most interesting reason for using open data is that you can explore manuscripts, create projects, and experiment in ways that you wouldn't be able to do with the physical object. And I'm just going to highlight some of those before moving on to wget. So Dot Porter, Curator of Digital Research Services at SIMS and the Kislak Center, has been one of our super users since the beginning, and she has worked on a number of different projects using data on open. So this is an online version of LJS 101, a page that you can see it's in a page turner. And this is one of our manuscripts at Penn, LJS 101, using Internet Archive's book reader. So these online page turning versions of our codices were created by Dot using images and metadata from open. She has also created ebooks of our codices in the open source EPUB format. The ebooks Dot created are all available in Scholarly Commons, the open repository at Penn Libraries for scholarly output of Penn community. The link at the bottom of the page right here will take you to these books. This is a screenshot from iBooks on my Mac, and you can download and open one of these books and use it on an iPad or any Mac device, but you can also use ebooks in Google Books on Android phones and devices as well. So I encourage you to go to this link here and check out all the different ebooks available in EPUB format that have been created already. And this has been, they were created using the metadata and images on open. And Dot has also used data from open in her collaborative collation project, VizCall. VizCall allows you to digitally disbind manuscripts to investigate how the bifolia were originally put together in quires using images and metadata from open and a collation formula. So some of you may know a lot about how manuscripts are put together. Some of you may not. They're put together in quires, which are folded pieces of parchment that are sewn together. So this would be where a seam would be right here if this was a quire. These would all be different leaves. And so this page would open onto this page. This page here would open onto that page. So you can see that if the book was sewn here, or the quire was sewn here, the page as it was originally written and decorated would look quite different after they were sewn together. And what you can do in VizCall is actually digitally disbind them to see what the original bifolia looked like. You could never do that with a manuscript in its physical form because you would have to disbind the manuscript. So I definitely encourage you to check out vizcall.org to learn more about Dot's project. It's really fascinating and a great example of what you can do using some imagination and the images and metadata from open. The last thing I want to stress before I talk about wget is that open takes away the interface. It's just the data presented very simply on HTML pages and exposed to computers in the data folder. We're used to interacting with images and metadata online through interfaces. And interfaces are wonderful, and there are some very useful ones out there, including ones that we have at Penn, like Pen in Hand. And these interfaces can do all sorts of specialized actions, but often institutions provide access that allows the user to view images and manipulate them within an interface, but make their download and reuse difficult. Therefore, we wanted to create a website that would overcome these challenges and in essence free the data for bulk download and reuse without an interface. That's why we created Open. We want our users to be able to take as much data from our site as they want or need and to do new and interesting things with it. All right, so now we're going to move on to wget, downloading manuscripts in bulk. Let's do a quick refresher on what is wget. Wget is a command line utility available for Linux, Mac, and Windows machines. Using the command line means interacting with your computer using text commands in a terminal interface or shell. It is a concise and powerful way to interact with the computer. If you're using a Mac, you'll be using the terminal program. If you're using Windows, you'll be using Cygwin. There are instructions in the technical README on Open that explain how to install wget on your computer, and if you're using Windows environment, how to install Cygwin on your computer as well. If you don't have wget installed, you'll want to pause now and install it before we go any further. There are a few things you should know before we start using wget. First of all, I want to talk about directory structure. You're all probably quite familiar with the concept of a nested directory structure. We use directories all the time on computers to organize files and folders. When you're using the command line, you are also navigating through the directory structure on your computer, but you'll be doing it using text commands. It's important, therefore, to understand the parent-child relationship in a directory. A folder that contains another folder is the parent. So work here is the parent of client name. A folder contained by another folder, or a folder within a folder, is the child. So client name would be the child of work. And there could be multiple children too. So for instance, I think that's the Roman numeral 8. This folder has all these different children, and they all have this one parent. When we talk about moving through the command line, I'll mention moving down a directory. That means moving from the parent down through the children. If I talk about moving back up through a directory structure, I mean starting in a child folder and moving back up to a parent folder. So think of it as you're jumping down through these layers and then jumping back up. And you want to know a little bit more about navigating the command line. Again, using the command line, you can use text commands to navigate through a directory structure. You can also create folders, delete them, and view the contents of folders from the command line. Working on the command line give you a feeling of power because you can do a lot with just a few typed commands. There are many basic tutorials available online, but you'll only need to know a few things in order to get stuff off of Open, and I'm going to demonstrate some of those commands that you'll need to know right now. So I'm going to open the terminal program because I'm on a Mac. The first command you'll want to know is pwd, print working directory. This tells you where you are in the directory structure. So I know that I'm in a folder here called jdummer that's within a folder called users. If I go to Finder and I go to my hard drive, you can see here's the users. This is the top, if you go to your hard drive, this is the top level of the directory structure. And then if you go to users, and then within users, jdummer, this is the folder I'm actually in here on the command line. I can type ls, that means list. This will list everything that's in the JDummer folder. So when I press enter, let me make this a bit larger. As you can see, it lists everything in this folder, which is also listed here. It's actually going in the opposite order, but you can see it starts with this WebJPEG. And here's the applications folder, a Bryn Mawr folder, and so on. Okay. Then change directory is a good one. So let's say we want to do change directory. Actually, let's make directory first, mkdir, and I'm going to make a folder called Open Tutorial. So you simply type mkdir, that means make directory, and then the name of the folder that you want to make. And then you can see over here that if I type list, here's my folder now, Open Tutorial. And over here, I should be able to find it as well. Remember, these are this represents this place. They're the same place. And there's nothing in it right now because it's a new folder. Then I can do change directory, CD, and then type the name of the folder. If you start typing something, you can press tab and it will complete it for you, as long as it's a unique name, that you don't have folder names that start with the same thing. That's a nice trick. And then just press enter, and then if I do pwd, now it'll tell me I am in the Open Tutorial directory within JDummer. Okay. Let's say I want to move back up a directory. Let's say I want to go back to JDummer. I don't want to be in this folder anymore. What you do is type change directory and then ... 2 dots, and then press enter. Then if you do print working directory, you can see you're back in JDummer. Let's take a look here. Okay, open. Let's do CD. Let's go into the open folder. And then if you type tab twice, it'll tell you the folders within a folder. So there's another open folder. You can see that you can layer folders upon each other so that you can move down 2 directories. So if I type pwd, you can see I'm in JDummer, open, and open. And then if I want to move back up, I can type 2 dots / 2 dots, oops, slash, and that'll move me back to JDummer. So you can move down folders as many times as you want, or up folders as many times as you want. You don't have to do it one at a time. Okay, and then let's do remove directory, rmdir, and then the name of a folder will remove a directory as long as it's empty. And if you list it, you'll see our Open Tutorial directory is no longer there. I am going to create it again, though, because we're going to be using it. Okay. RM removes a file. So if you do RM in the name of the file, I'm going to do this file here. It's just a JPEG that's hanging out in my folder. I don't need it there. So if you type RM in the name of the file and press enter, it'll remove that for you. And if I type ls and enter, list the items in this directory, you can see that now it's gone. It's not there anymore. And the last but not least, and I'll demonstrate this in a minute, Control-C, which is the same on Mac and Windows, is an important one. Whoops, sorry about that. Control-C is important because if you are running a process that you realize you made a mistake and you don't want to be, you made a mistake and you don't want to be running it, you can hit Control-C and that'll kill the process that's running. So when I showed you initially that, that video where I typed the wget command and then it started downloading all the files, if you realize, oh, I did the wrong manuscript, I need to stop this before it fills up my computer with all those images, just type Control-C together and it will kill that process. And I will demonstrate that in a minute. Okay, so now we're going to talk about specific wget commands. The commands we've done so far are just basic commands of navigating through the command line. Now we're going to be doing commands specific to the wget program that you've downloaded to your computer. You always have to start with wget because that calls the program. So it tells your computer that you are going to use wget. Otherwise, it won't know what you're trying to do. Let's bring terminal back up. So here, you can see this gives us a website address that is simply this JPEG. So if we go to any item here, let's go to LJS 101. And we're going to go to the data folder into a web JPEG. And we're going to click on this one. If you copy this URL, and also let's go into the open tutorial directory I made, because we want to download this item into this directory. Type wget and then also paste that URL there and click enter. You can see that it ran and it 100% downloaded our image. So if we type ls list in our open tutorial directory, you'll see it's listing the web JPEG. And if we go here to our folder on the point and click side, and we go to open tutorial, you can see there's our image. And we can open it and look at it in preview. Very lovely. All right, so that is sort of the most basic command that you can do in wget. Is just type wget and give wget a URL that is an image. Okay. Let's see. Where's my PowerPoint? Here we go. All right, now we're going to talk about more complex commands. There's -nd, which stands for no directory. That tells wget not to use the existing directory structure of Open's directory. I'm going to do examples of all these in just a minute and go in depth with them. So I'm just going to tell you about them. If you don't totally understand at first, that's okay. I think you'll understand once we get to the demonstration. But no directory tells wget not to use the existing directory structure. And in our case, it's the open directory structure. So if we go to, for instance, if we go to this manuscript, the open directory structure includes, you know, the data folder and the TIFF folder, the thumb folder, the web folder. It says don't use that directory structure, -nd. Then if we go to, okay, so then $P stands for directory prefix. This is used along with a directory name that you create and specifies where to put the download files. So if you use this -P, for instance, and then give it a directory prefix, LJS 225, let's say you're trying to download this manuscript, what it will do is put everything you're downloading into a folder called LJS 225. or in this case, -P, manuscripts medieval. We'll put everything in this medieval folder within a folder called manuscripts. Then we have -NP, no parent. This one's really important. It tells wget not to download any files from the parent folder of the folder you were downloading from. wget, it's really important to target what you want to download. Do you want to download things from do you want to download things just from one manuscript? Do you want to download all the web JPEGs from a particular collection? And it's important to know where you are in the directory structure. And the no parent command says, focus on everything from this directory structure down. Don't go up above to the parent folders. And that's good because if it did, it would download everything from open, and we don't want that. Again, this will become a little more clear when I do the actual demonstration. The -A except list command specifies the type of file you want to download. This is a really great command, very useful, because it tells the computer, I want to accept only the XML files. So you would type -A.xml or -A.jpg. And in this case, you would get the web JPEGs and the thumb JPEGs. If you want just the web JPEGs, you would do -A and then _web.jpg. This is a little confusing, but basically you're telling it you only want all the things that have this right before .jpg. And thumbnails don't have that. It has thumb.jpg. So if you wanted the thumbnails instead of the web JPEGs, you would put thumb.jpg there instead of web.jpg. We'll go over this in a minute as well. Yeah, if you want to get just the TIFFs, you would do -A.tiff. Now you can combine these and do -A.xml and -A.jpg if you want both the XML and the JPEG. So if you do use the -A except list though, you have to list all the different ones you want. Otherwise, it will not download them for you. And then -R means recursive, and this tells wget to download all the files from the folder you are targeting, as well as from any child folders within that targeted folder. So for instance, if you go to, if you're in this level of the directory, right? So this is LJS 101 here, and we are in the, I don't know if you can see this, we're in the data folder right here. And there are a couple of folders in this data folder, TIFF, thumb, and web JPEG. Say you want to get all the JPEGs, and that includes thumbnails and web JPEGs. You would want to use the -R command because you need wget to go down into both of these folders in order to retrieve the JPEGs. If you just stay on this level, there are no JPEGs on this level. There's only one XML file. So you would have to tell it, okay, go recursively and find all the JPEGs in the child folders. Okay. All right, so here's our exercise. And this is where we're going to work on learning the commands. Okay, so our first task is to download all of the web JPEGs for MS Codex 1058 from the University of Pennsylvania Books and Manuscripts. So if we break this down, it'll be easier. So the first thing we want to do is find the University of Pennsylvania Books and Manuscripts repository. So let's go to our website, and we're going to go to the repositories because we don't know what the repository ID is for the University of Pennsylvania Books and Manuscripts. And we're going to scroll through and we're going to find, and it's alphabetical, so go to U, and find University of Pennsylvania libraries, books, and manuscripts. Let's see. Here it is. I should actually change that because it's just University of Pennsylvania libraries, but this is the one we want. And the repository ID is 0002. And the University of Pennsylvania Libraries repository is the one that has all the books and manuscripts from the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. Okay, so next, we actually want to go to the data folder now that we know the repository ID and go to the 0002 folder. And next, let's go back to our PowerPoint. We want to find MS Codex 1058. I'm actually going to go back to, where am I going to? Here, okay. And we're gonna scroll through and find MS Codex 1058. Now there's a lot of items here in the Penn repository, but that's okay, we'll find it. Okay, MS Codex 1058, okay, great. We found our particular item that we want. And what was it asking for us again? It was asking us for all the web JPEGs. Okay, great. So we know that we can go to the web folder and we want all the web JPEGs. Perfect. So what we do is go to terminal and type one sec, sorry. wget, that calls the program. Okay, and then we want to type -np because we do want to type no parent because we don't want anything above that level. So we're here in our web JPEG directory. We don't want to go above to the parents and download any web JPEGs. So we're typing -np. Then we don't need the -r because we're in this level. There's no child folder we need to go down into to get the web JPEGs. So we don't need that. Then we're gonna type -nd because I'm not going to use the open directory structure for this. And I'm going to type -a.jpg because we are in this directory. So we don't need to specify that it's a web JPEG because there are no thumb JPEGs in this directory. And then I'm going to copy this URL and type that there. And press enter. It didn't work. It didn't work. I'm going to try -r. Okay. Well, it shouldn't need the recursive tag, but apparently it seems to. So it's now working now that I put the recursive tag in. And let's go to our open tutorial folder. And here they all are going in there. Great. Okay, so it'll take a minute. I think it takes about 40 seconds for all these to download. About that recursive tag, I'm actually not sure why it didn't work without. That's a good lesson in that it's always good to, if something's not working, to try adding a -r or a -np to it. I have noticed that when I'm running into trouble, usually if I add those tags, it will work. Okay, it's still going. And looks like it's all done. Perfect. Okay. All right, I'm actually gonna go ahead and delete all these. And we're gonna run this again. I want to show you a different way of doing it. And we're gonna go up a directory level. To here, to our data folder. And we're going to get the JPEGs again. So type wget first, np-np-nd. This time we're going to do a -p. This is giving it a directory prefix. And if you do use the -p command, you follow it with a folder name where you want the images or the files to go. You can't have any commands in between the -p and the folder name, otherwise it won't work. Then I'm going to follow it with the recursive command. Now we absolutely need the recursive command here because we're in this level and there are no JPEGs on this level, so we need it to recursively go get the web JPEGs. But I also need to specify that it's a web JPEG this time. So and for whatever reason, it needs a space when you put something before the .jpeg or the dot extension. It needs a space between the -a and the rest of the command. Whereas if you're just doing .jpeg, you can have it right next to the command. It's sort of an anomaly I've noticed. Okay, so we'll do that. And I'm using, if you go, you'll notice that everything, all the web JPEGs end with this _web.jpg. So it's targeting this part of the file name and saying everything that ends with this ending, get that. And we're going to go back up to this level and I'm going to copy this URL. And all right, and remember they're now going to be going into a folder called LJS 101. Okay, and if we go to our folder over here and find open tutorial, here's our LJS 101 folder, and now everything's going into there. And I'm actually going to do Control-C so we don't have to wait. This will kill the process, so we don't have to wait through it all. So Control-C, and you can see now the process is no longer running. And if you look in the folder, it just kind of stopped. That's not everything. So again, I'm gonna just delete that so we don't need it anymore. All right, great. So we were able to accomplish our first exercise, downloading all the web JPEGs for MS Codex 1058. All right, now we're going to download all the files for MS Oversize 7 from Penn. So we're in the same repository, so we don't need to look up the repository ID. We're already in the right place, but we want to get all the files, not just the web JPEGs, or not just the JPEGs. We want to get the TIFFs, the XML, the TEI XML, the JPEGs, and any extra files there might be too. So let's go to Open. We're going to find MS Oversize 7. And I believe that this will be at the bottom because it's called MS Oversize. And let's go all the way down, listed alphabetically, MS Oversize 7. Okay. Okay. So let's go to our terminal window. And we're going to type wget, because we're calling the program, -np, because we don't want to get anything above the level of MS oversize 7. -r, because we recursively are going to need to go down into the data folder and get all the different types of files there are. Then we're going to type, I'm going to do -nd, no directory. I don't want to use the open directory structure for this. Then we're going to do -p and give it a name. So let's call it MS oversize 7. And then let's copy the URL. Okay. All right, it's running. Let's take a look at our folder. Here's MS oversize 7. And okay, there's a lot of files in there right now. What's happening right now is that the TIFF files are downloading, and they are slower to download because they're quite large. So we'll just wait. This is actually a very short manuscript, so it won't take long. I think there's only 2 images. Let me just double check. Yeah, 2 images. So this shouldn't take too long, but it will take a minute to download the TIFFs. And that's why if you're downloading the TIFFs, it's going to take a while, but it's a lot faster to set up a process like this and just have it run in the background on your computer than to sit there and right-click on every single TIFF file and download it. So we can open this one in preview. Interesting. Doesn't seem to want to. Oh, that's because that one's not downloaded yet. Okay, there's our first image, TIFF image. Okay. I clicked on this one originally. It's not finished downloading. That's why it gave me the error. You can see it's only on 81%. All right. And the rest of it was really quick. So you can see we got the web JPEGs, the TIFF files, the thumb files. They're all in kind of a strange order, but they're all there. Let's see, where's the TEI file? Here it is. And they download all these like index HTML files. If you want a sort of a cleaner version of this, I can show you how to do that. You could do this, and then you would want to specify all the different file types. So -a.tiff, -a.x, xml, -a.jpeg. And then those are the main file types you would want. And then you could just ask for those, and it wouldn't download all those index.html files. Okay. Great. So we were able to accomplish our second exercise. Next up, download all of the TEI XML files from every item in the College of Physicians, the Historical Medical Library repository. Okay, so let's break this down again into pieces. First things first, we want to find the College of Physicians repository. So let's go to open and go to the repositories page. And I'm just going to do a find search just to do it quickly. College of Physicians of Philadelphia, the Historical Medical Library. Okay, and the repository ID is 0027. And let's see how many things are in here. Okay, not very many, a handful. And we want to get all the XML, so each of these files. And what we want to do is go to the data folder and find that repository. We remember we found the ID is 0027. And we will remain on this level because we don't want to go into any individual folder, because then we'll only get the XML from that particular item. We want to remain on this level so we have access to all of these directories. So if we go to the terminal, what we want to do is wget, call wget. We want to do -np again because we don't want to go above the level of the College of Physicians to other repositories. We want to type -r because we recursively need to go down into all of these folders to find the TEI. Then we want to, let's call this College of Physicians TEI. Give it a kind of a long name there. Then we want to do -a.xml. We only want the XML files. And then we're going to copy this URL here and paste it. And there it goes. It's running. Let's make sure it's doing what we want it to do. Here's our folder, and oops, I forgot to give it the no directory tag. So you can see what's happening is it's giving it the directory structure of open here. So a main data folder with the directory structure here. I'm actually going to kill this process, Control-C. Explain what happened here. So because I didn't use the -nd tag or -no directory tag, it's using open structure. And while it's getting us what we want, it's putting it in it's downloading all of these folders with nothing in them because we didn't ask for these files. So it's just a lot of extra folders. Although it is getting us the TEI, it's just a little less accessible because you have to go find it. So let's run this command again. I'm gonna put this in the trash, and I'm going to come back here and just make sure I type the no directory command. Okay, so we see we have that command now. So now you'll see the difference between what happened there. See, now it's just putting it all in one folder. So it's not using the open directory structure. Sometimes it can be useful to use the open directory structure, but in this case, it's not. I think our next task, our next exercise uses the open directory structure. And another thing I want to point out is that the order that you use the commands in doesn't matter. You can put no directory at the front or at the end. It just has to be between wget and the URL. All the commands have to go between wget and the URL. And then there's some commands like the -P command that's followed by a directory name. Those have to go together. When there is a command with an added element to it, those have to be side by side. But the basic commands you can sprinkle in wherever you want, as long as they're between wget and the URL. And here you can see there's all our TEI. So great. And our last exercise is to download all the web JPEG files and thumbnail JPEGs of LJS63 using Open's directory structure. So the first thing we want to do is figure out where LJS63 is, and I'm going to give you, oops, sorry, wrong thing. I'm going to give you a hint that it's in the Lawrence J. Schoenberg collection of the University of Pennsylvania. Here, 0001, there's 0001 repository. So if we go to the data folder again, we want to go to the 0001 repository. And then what was it asking for again? Okay, LJS63, all the web JPEGs and thumbnail JPEGs. So let's go. Sorry, I keep doing that. That is another process that has nothing to do with open. Okay, let's go to LJS 63. Okay. If you go in the data folder, the things we want are in the thumb folder, the thumb JPEGs, and the web folder, the web JPEGs. And I'm gonna get it from this level of just LJS 63. And it asked us to use Open's directory structure. So we're gonna do that this time. So we're not gonna use the -ND command. So first type wget, then -np, pretty much always use -np because you don't want to get the parent directories. -r because we recursively need to go down in the folders to get the JPEGs. -p, whoops, -p, LJS 63, call it that. Oh, actually, yes, let's do that. Okay. And then normally I'd type -ND and give it, and say we don't want the open directory structure, but in this case we do, so I'm not going to use that command. And I'm going to use the -a.jpeg command because we want the thumbnail JPEGs and the web JPEGs. And then I'm going to copy this URL here and type that there and then press enter. And there we go, it's running. And we'll see what happens in this folder. Okay, so you see it starts out with open.library.upenn.edu, then the large data folder, then the repository, then just LJS 63, then the data folder, and then it puts everything in the thumb folder that are thumbnail JPEGs and web folder that are web JPEGs. And you'll notice that this folder shows up too, but nothing will appear in there because we didn't ask for the TIFF files. Now, using the open directory structure can be useful in this case because it's arranging these in the web folder and the thumb folder if we'd like. If we say wanted to get everything from a certain, from certain collections, and we were getting all the JPEGs and TIFFs, I think it would be useful to use the directory structure because it is nicely organized for all the files that we have. It's just that if you don't want all the files that we have, it can be a lot of folders to click through. So you have the option of using the open directory structure or not, but I did want to show you what both look like. And so that is actually it for our exercises. So I would encourage you to use these commands that we've learned and go to Open and try and download a manuscript that you find interesting and give it a try. All right, so I'm going to go back into the PowerPoint here. Here's our answer key, but we already went over all these answers. Another thing I'd just like to say is you can always reach out to us at open@pobox.upenn.edu. If you have any questions, or we'd also just like to know if you're using Open, if you're finding it useful, if you're doing an interesting project, we like to keep up with what people are doing with Open. So we'd love for you to reach out. If you have any questions, you can email as well. So please do get in touch if you'd like. And then just a thanks to my colleagues. Of course, Will, as our former director, has now gone to Princeton, but he was a big part of creating Open. Doug Emery is the programmer for Open and a pivotal person in all of this. Dot Porter, our super user who I mentioned, Dennis Mullen designed it. Amy Hutchins and Kelly Tuttle have cataloged most of the items from Penn on Open. And we've had two great project assistants in the past who have been instrumental in putting things up on Open, Diane Buno and Molly Reynolds. So thanks to all my colleagues. And thanks so much. I hope you found this useful. Bye.